Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be talking about the newest episode of MOP Season 7, Flurry of Emotions here. There we go. Make sure that's all ready. So, anyway, if this is your first time joining us for an Equine Episode Examination episode, pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the newest episode and start with more general discussion on it and work our way into more specific discussions on the topic of the episode. So we record these shows live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. give or take Eastern Daylight Time here at CinemaQuestria.com. So if you're watching this in a recording and you want to come and participate in the live chat discussion and the IRC chat here, stop on by on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So, anyway, I'm Rain Shadow. I'm joined by a couple people here in the call. If they want to introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Mr. Ben.
This is Jay Smith.
And, of course, we're joined by everyone in the chat who is encouraged, if you're coming to the chat here, to participate in the discussion of the episode here.
Unfortunately, Matt the Shadowman couldn't join us today. He's not with us. And today is a very special day because today is his birthday. So if you see him at some point in the chat, be sure to give him a very hearty happy birthday.
Indeed.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll get into the discussion of Flurry of Emotions here. So what is everyone's initial thoughts on the episode?
Flurry Heart is freaking adorable.
Yes.
Seriously, it should not be legal for her to be that cute.
Indeed.
It was, I guess, my opinion would be it was a fun romp. It wasn't, not anything huge and anything small, just a very kind of fun slice of life sort of episode. An episode that I guess we probably, are expecting to see at some point with Twilight or someone trying to babysit Flurry Heart. I mean, there's only so much you can do with her as a character, so it was kind of one of those things you were expecting, and they kind of got it out of the way pretty early on in the season here. So it did about everything you would expect from the episode, hit all the notes, and it was just kind of a funny episode to watch. And it was great seeing more of Shining and Cadence. I'm glad that that they got so much time in the episode, more than just dropping Flurry Heart off. That was probably one of the highlights of the episode for me. It was just getting to see more of them interacting as a couple, more than just kind of them dropping Flurry Heart off and leaving until the end of the episode. $15 out of 10. No, I don't give scores. So let's see. So we can go ahead. We'll dive into the episode and the story and the writing of the episode. Gosh, I completely in my rush to pull everything up, I've forgotten to pull something up. Sorry about the delay today. Everyone was just was rushing to get everything set up once I got home today. So, yeah, this episode was written by two new writers, so another writing duo. We had a lot of writing duos last season, and got another one coming on this season. So, this is the first episode that they have written. Sammy Crowley and Whitney Weta. They were previously, or I guess still are, staff writers on The Loud House, another channel that I know a lot of people here enjoy. So this is their first pony romp here, under the guidance, of course, of Joanne and Christine as well. So they were the new writers already, starting the season off for it. So a lot of new stuff this season already. So how did everyone think they did with the story and the writing?
I'd say they actually did pretty decently. For brand new writers to the series, I'd say this was a decent debut.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the other new writers we've gotten this season, they've shown a fairly good understanding of the setting and the characters that they were writing for. Thankfully, this wasn't really an episode where they were shoved into writing for a lot of characters. They had to write for Twilight and Spike, and then, for a little bit for Princess Cadence and Shining Armor, and then of course some new, wacky stuff for Flurry Heart, who was also a new character. So, but it was nice that, with those few characters, I think that they wrote them very well. Especially Spike, who, just like the opener, was doing kind of what he does best in terms of playing foil for Twilight in this, who of course gets a little over her head as is normal, and it does the good Spike thing of trying to rein her in and point out different faults or other problems that potential problems, especially with that come to fruition later in the episode. So I think he was written really well, and I liked the moment at the end, at the very end of the episode there, where he's reading finishing reading the story to the foals, because it kind of is a good character moment for him, both in terms of actually doing something really good and finishing that story for the foals, but also being successful at it. Like, the foals were obviously really into it and really into Spike telling it, so he was being very competent in telling that story at the end, and that's something, again, I like to see from Spike a lot, shifting away from kind of the earlier seasons mentality that Spike sort of had at always failing at stuff. So it was good to see that tacked on at the end there. I'll get this out of the way first. I did have one small issue with this episode. Again, small issue, but I'll get it out of the way. It's something I've always kind of talked about in a lot of different episodes that are focused especially on Twilight, is her ability to teleport. And usually I'm a staunch defender of this and her not using teleportation for some things. Usually because they can be easily explained away by either the location she's trying to get to is too far away or too unfamiliar. Either it's too far away for her to teleport potentially, or she's just not familiar with the location to know exactly where to teleport, like, without teleporting herself into a wall or something silly like that. But I do think that is a minor fault of this episode, in that because you can't use those excuses here, where she's in a very big rush to get to all of these different places on time, and she's obviously falling a lot behind because of Flurry Heart and all the tasks she's taking on. But throughout the entire episode, we see her running to every single location in Ponyville, where really she could have just easily teleported themselves there. I mean, it's Ponyville, so it's not a great distance, and it's obviously locations she's very familiar with. Even if she's not teleporting directly inside a building, she could, obviously cut her time a lot by not panting and running and exerting herself so much to get to these locations. And it's not a huge fault of the episode, but I think it's one that's worth mentioning, where I think this is one of the few times where I do think that Twilight's ability to teleport herself and others, it was kind of overlooked and kind of has a little tiny hole in the story there that really they could have saved a lot. She could have saved a lot of time if she would have just teleported. And magic, and the biggest thing is magic and teleportation is featured so heavily in the episode, with Flurry Heart doing it too, which kind of again plays against that. It's not a huge fault, but I think it's one that's a fault enough that's worth mentioning. It doesn't ruin the episode, but it is definitely something I noticed when I first watched it.
It was a Flurry's a bit. Shows that Twilight's getting on stage, and Flurry's a better teleporter than her.
Yep, and Tim, like Tim said, it might just be new writers. It's something overlooked. Maybe it's something that Joanna Christine or someone in the editing process should have caught. It's not a huge issue. But it's a flaw that I think usually a lot of people point out in episodes with Twilight, and usually it's for reasons that can be easily explained away. But I didn't really see anyone pointing that out this time, and it was like the one time where I actually think maybe it was a problem, and I didn't see anyone pointing it out. So, okay, whatever. But she didn't have that much stuff with her. I mean, I was kind of thinking that maybe she gets too much stuff, but she really didn't have that much. I think it was well within her ability to teleport what she had, or at least she didn't gain that stuff until later, so maybe once she gained a lot of that stuff and she was running to the hospital, maybe then, but before that, she definitely still could have teleported, at least shaved off some of the time. Yeah, anyway, I guess this is the first time where I've legitimately kind of felt maybe that was an issue. But all the other times, it was never really an issue. Yeah, I guess I could agree with that, Technotron. I think this episode was a little, obviously a little more focused on Flurry Heart than the premiere was, where she was kind of the B story and sort of the thing that got the plot going in that episode. Obviously, she was also very much a newborn. She seems a lot more... it's kind of... I don't want to say competent, but because it doesn't really work. But you know what I mean. She's a little more active. She's a little more aware of surroundings and what she's doing and of feelings in the episode. So, both, chalk that up, right, to maybe not just better writing, but just, more freedom and time with the character since she was more of the focus. But here's the thing, Klaatu, about that. You're talking about an episode that was all the way back in the Ticketmaster, which is the third episode of the show, right? So that's when Twilight is still very much new. It's before she's an Alicorn, before she's done a lot of teleporting or mastered a lot of spells. I think there's a big difference between her teleporting then and teleporting now. We see her teleport all the time now and teleport other objects and herself with no issues. So, I don't really think it's her necessarily wanting not to risk Baby Flurry, especially when Baby Flurry Heart is teleporting herself all over the hospital at the end of the episode with no issues. I think I had more fun with this episode than Baby Cakes. Trying to... They're kind of different, I guess, so I'm trying to just think of how to compare them, but I don't know. I think overall I may have had a little more fun with this one. They both do very similar plots, I guess, in terms of the whole babysitting over your head thing. This one's a little different, being that Baby Cakes was more Pinkie Pie getting over her head with, babysitting two fools, where this one is Twilight's not really getting over her head in babysitting, it's getting over her head and taking on too much while trying to babysit, doing all these other things at the same time for it. I think this one might have a little bit more wacky comedy in it than Baby Cakes did. It's been a while since I've seen Baby Cakes. So I might not be the most qualified to make an opinion on that right now myself. It was nice. I'm glad they did bring Pound and Pumpkin back in this episode, though. It was nice kind of seeing them interact with Flurry Heart. But they did have the diaper joke, and I really did like that diaper at the beginning there. Here I have some diapers and more diapers and back up more diapers.
Well, yeah, they did have the diaper joke, but it wasn't the dirty diaper joke where, so it was still a diaper joke, just not the one that they normally go with, which I still commend them for.
Yeah, I really like the way, just kind of getting into character discussion, but I do like how Flurry Heart was written in the episode, and I'll probably save that for any more discussion on that for when we get to the characters. This episode had a lot of great dialogue in it as well, and I attribute this both to the writing and the voice acting and voice direction. There's so many great lines from Shining Armor and Cadence and Twilight, and they were all delivered very, very well. Very, nice comedic timing lines of it. Especially when they're sounding very frazzled. And they say a lot of really funny things, but they sound really natural, kind of. They don't seem like a forced joke or anything. A lot of the line delivery of them, especially, just seems so natural, like especially in a lot of Cadence's lines. Brett McKipp did a really good job of delivering those lines, and I think they were written really well. There's just a lot of really things that's like, yeah, that's being a parent right there. And yeah, that's another point that I wanted to bring up. Technotron this is another episode here in Pony with an A and B plot, much like last week's episode. And it's not something that Pony has really done a lot of. There's a lot of shows that will do an AB, ABC, ABCD plot, with a lot of ongoing plots at once. Pony doesn't really do that often, or at least not as pronounced. With one of the biggest first ones being the season 6 premiere, where they had sort of both the Starlight and Sunburst A plot and the Flurry Heart B plot here. Here we have the A and B. It's not quite the same as the past, either the season 6 premiere where we had the A and B plot and they both kind of concurrently work together and come together in the end in a very solid way, or like the Trixie episode where the B plot is, was very, very specifically kind of offering that kind of counterpoint to what's the ongoing things that are happening in the A plot. Here it was just kind of seeing what Cadence and Shining were doing at the same time, and of course seeing them being more progressively worried about, leaving Flurry, like a lot of new parents are when they leave their child for the first time. It's not something that really has any effect on the A plot or anything, but it allows us to see more into, just kind of gives a little side story of them and character development for them on the side, and just seeing how they are reacting to not having Flurry Heart around. Yeah, I think overall, the story of this one is one of those stories that's, I don't like using cliche, but it is one of those stories that has been done before, obviously, like so many other stories have been at this point in time. So it's your standard sort of babysitting over your head story. Though, like I said, it's a little different from Baby Cakes, where that was very much the babysitting over your head story, and this one's kind of like, I think Twilight's an okay babysitter, but she thought she was such a good babysitter, such a good aunt, that she could do so much more on top of it instead and still not change her plans. This one's more about, you gotta, less about the challenge of raising children and more about the time it takes to raise children and how you have to really devote that time to them, and you can't just have them on the side while you're, going about the rest of your day about it. But even if it is kind of, a more standard story, I do think it was executed well, and like I said, it was a very enjoyable episode to watch. Nothing spectacular, it's not. I don't think this is going to probably go down as my favorite episode of season 7, but it was a very enjoyable episode to watch. Like Tim said, it was a kind of a character and humor episode about it, both building Flurry Heart's character and having a lot of humor around that. Nothing wrong with that. It was I will say it was a little weird hearing Twilight call herself an aunt throughout the entire episode. Another interesting thing about this episode that I didn't even catch until I saw some other people mentioning it online was the story that Twilight and Spike were reading to the fillies there, and it involved a character named Grogar, who is actually a villain from the 1984 My Little Pony series. So a little callback to a past villain. And obviously, in the story they're reading is kind of the same story that happened there, and he's the villain in the story. I'm not very much familiar with pre-FIM lore, so when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It wasn't just something they just kind of made up out of nowhere. Kind of makes you wonder if there was just kind of a random drop, or if they're setting up for something here. And yeah, it was nice having another sort of slice of life episode revolving around Twilight again, because I know that's something Tim talked about a lot last season, where she had episodes, but there's a lot of times where she didn't really have her own sort of middle of the road, more comedic slice of life episodes like we had in earlier seasons. So it's nice kind of having more 2 episodes here at the beginning, 3 almost if you kind of count the B plot of all bottled up there, where Twilight has a little more focus that isn't in some sort of epic fashion battling Starlight or something, or another evil villain in a 2-parter. So it was nice having another episode focusing on her, and then of course her sort of relationship with Flurry Heart here. But was that a fairy tale actually, Mr. Ben, or was it or is it a history book?
I don't really remember.
Or one of those sort of fiction, sort of half fiction, half nonfiction, embellished nonfiction, I guess.
It could have been a history. I don't remember.
I guess sort of like Daring Do's novels. I know that there's, in regards to the Grogar thing, without getting into too much speculation here, between that kind of taking place in the quote-unquote past, at least in course, in our real life here, but also if it is kind of more of a nonfiction or embellished nonfiction book that Spike's reading, it would be also in the past there. And then, of course, the new comic series also delving into the past, sort of past figures and events in the Pony universe that is supposedly supposed to be tied to this season in some way. As well as what's happening in the main comic as well, that's also supposed to be tied into this season in some way. Be interesting to see if any of these things collide in this later this season. I actually did. I haven't read a MOP comic for a year now, maybe. I don't know. I stopped after like the 8th issue or 10th issue of the series. I have a lot more that I bought physically, and then I stopped buying physically, and then I got a bunch of other ones in one of the Pony Humble Bundle thing that I never read. But I actually just got the 3 newest ones of the new main arc and the first one of the whatever the new series is as well. And I just downloaded them on Comixology and stuff and read them. They were pretty good. Been a while since I've read any of them. I was more kind of reading them because I'm kind of interested in getting that with both the additional lore for the series, but also maybe seeing, since they're supposed to tie into season 7 in some way. I didn't read 50 yet. I want to download 50 and read it, but I started at 51 since that was the start of the new arc for the main series.
You also gotta read 49, 48 because this is the 50th. This is the end of a 3-part.
Well, yeah, that too. Other comments. I guess the episode had a good pacing on it. It didn't try and do too much. It stuck to the one subject and had that slight B plot with Cadence and Shining Armor, and I guess kind of took us through different scenes and involving Flurry Heart doing something wild and crazy like you would expect a baby alicorn to do with powerful magic. Then coming to the obviously conclusion and sort of climax and lesson. It didn't take on too much, and because of that, it was able to get away with having a nice kind of slow, not too fast, not too slow pace about it, with just about right for the humor. More Hasbro references. Oh, I almost forgot. Thank you, Radio Dog. Yes. Pinkie Pie. Another fantastic kind of callback here in sort of continuity with Pinkie Pie's little cave of stalkerish NSA type information that she keeps in the basement. And a nice callback to her season 5 episode there, where we were first introduced to that and stuff. So it was a very nice callback and use of that here in this episode. Was it Party Pooped? I guess it was Party Pooped. I couldn't remember if it was Party Pooped or if it was the one where Cadence got pregnant, or I guess was already pregnant. I guess it was Party Pooped. Yeah. She got pregnant on the way over to see Twilight. On the train. Twilight's the fucking princess of friendship. She walks in and she takes what she wants. Well, I wouldn't really say it's becoming public knowledge. I mean, it was already it was already known by Twilight and the main six. Twilight's falling on hard times. She has to pay the rent, the rent for the castle, so she's hoarding herself out to advertisements.
I misheard that as something totally different.
I mean, I guess that's another way she could be making money.
Yeah, let's save that for the fan art.
She keeps emergency levers stashed everywhere in case of lever emergency. Anything else for the story or the writing that anyone has to point out before we move to characters? Yeah, no comment. No comment on that image.
Like I usually say, that can't be taken out of context.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on. So we can talk about the characters and the characterization in the episode then. Let's go ahead and we can start off with I want to start off with let's start with Cadence and Shining Armor, since they're sort of the B plot, the smaller plot of the episode. What does everyone think about them and their feature in this episode?
It's nice to see them coming back and looking just as frazzled as they were in the season 6 premiere.
New babies are a full-time job.
This is your problem now.
Not only are they a full-time job on that, but they have their other full-time job that they still have to take care of as well. And it just juggling that issue is just I just don't understand how parents could do something like that.
It was nice. It was nice to see them together, and just them interacting together. Because it's not something we've really seen in the show before, at least not that much. So it was nice that was the episode's B plot, and they didn't just drop them off and disappear for the rest of the episode. It was nice. It was nice seeing that.
It also further shows that despite being royalty and owning a giant castle, it shows that Shining Armor and Cadence are spending time and actually raising Flurry on their own, rather than spoil her with a whole bunch of servants looking after her and them not doing anything with her.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they had some really good interactions together throughout the episode. That's another thing writing-wise I want to mention about, and sorry for backtracking here, but I guess Radio Dog's comment is I think I really liked the connections, sort of the flow between the A and the B plot. It did the same. It did just as well as I think All Bottled Up did, in terms of the dialogue kind of flowing in from the B plot and A plot and back and forth, with them repeating stuff. Or here they do it like when they're talking about the smashed peas, and then it cuts back to Twilight and Spike, getting bombarded with mashed peas. I think that the writing between and flow between the two plots wasn't sudden or jarring or anything. It was very well connected and flowed really well. Yeah, I'm just happy to see more Shining and Cadence at all. It's one of the things I've definitely wanted to see more of in the series. Was them, either one of them or both of them, in an episode, especially Shining, because we had a few episodes with Cadence and Twilight, but not really much with Shining. So it was nice to at least see a little bit more of them in this episode. It was also nice to see kind of Shining catching up with one of his old colleagues, I guess. I like Spike's comment of it's kind of, when he says the name Spearhead, it's like, hey, all your friends sort of have similar names. Because all of his friends are sort of all those royal guards and stuff, and it was kind of a funny little tongue-in-cheek sort of joke. But there's a lot of great moments with Cadence and Shining and his friend there. Like when Spearhead and Shining are sort of talking about standing guard and stuff, and they're like really deep and even thought about that, and Cadence is just off to the side, sort of rolling her eyes like, what the fuck. This is hard. There's so many great memes that I want to see more of from this episode. Just between Flurry Heart and the chalkboard, and the blank black canvas art. Is this art or a mistake? Yeah, Mr. Man, I think that would be about one of the only places I can really see them taking Flurry Heart's character from here, is to an episode like that, because this is something I mentioned, and we can kind of flow into Flurry Heart's character discussion here as well. It's one of the things I mentioned back in the season 6 premiere, was that I thought Flurry Heart was sort of the natural progression of the show. It isn't just sort of introducing a baby character just to introduce a baby character, or, I mean, it was like, yes, Cadence and Shining Armor got married a few seasons ago. It makes sense that they're going to eventually have a kid, and it makes sense it's going to be an alicorn, and, just kind of natural, writes itself sort of progression of the show. But as a character, it's kind of hard for Flurry Heart to really do much. It's like I didn't really expect her to appear in any of the other season 6 episodes, and she really didn't, besides a little bit at the end of the season 6 finale. Just because, I mean, there's only so much you can do with a newborn in an episode without aging them, and if you age them, then you run into other problems in the show with aging, with other characters aging and stuff. So it's kind of like, it was a natural progression, but there's not really a lot you can do from there, except use her as a plot device every now and then. And this episode was one of the things that you would be able to do with her, would be having an episode with Twilight and Flurry Heart, babysitting or something, and that's what they did. So not really, I don't think there's a lot of places you can really take Flurry Heart from here. It'd be interesting to see if they do. Besides, like Mr. Ben said, another potential would be, having some sort of episode with her and Shining Armor and Cadence or something like that. But it would kind of be, you could have that, but you'd have to kind of be careful with doing that, I guess, because you wouldn't want it to be too similar to this episode or Baby Cakes, in terms of, they're just struggling to raise, to manage Flurry Heart because she's a baby. So, I mean, I'm sure they could find us something else to do with them, but that would be one of the other few things I think they could really do with Flurry Heart. Yeah, I guess that's also true, Mr. Ben. I guess there would be some sort of episode in terms of Fluggerheart again being sort of a plot device, because, like I said, there's not really much more you can use it for other than a plot device, because she's a baby. Maybe getting kidnapped or something and having that sort of revolve around. Who knows? Maybe that could be happening this season or something. I mean, that's two-parter material right there. If some villain captured Flurryheart or something and they gotta go save her. But I will say that even though, like I said, there's only so much you can do with a infant baby character, outside of her being a plot device, I think they did do a good job with her in this episode, though. I think, like I said, this is one of the few things that they could have done. Now they kind of spent it, but it was executed well. It was nice seeing her, like we were talking about, have a little more character and personality in this episode. Seeing her actively reacting to stuff and interacting with other ponies and objects. Seeing her have emotions, and obviously the title, and more feelings and stuff like that, other than just sort of being a newborn foal that really didn't do much in the season 6 premiere, other than kind of get pissed off and create a big big storm, and because she broke her crying broke the heart. But it was nice seeing her, and I mean, like, one of my favorite interactions with Flurry in this episode is with the cake twins, and seeing them fighting and being kind of sad to see them fighting and trying to get the attention of Spike by like throwing a block at his head. And then as Spike is trying to find another toy, she sort of takes matters into her own hooves there, and actively tries to solve the situation like any kid would do, and say, oh, they both want to play with it, let me just rip this toy in two pieces and yay.
Apparently the Judgment of Solomon doesn't seem to have a place in Equestria here.
So he's like, yeah, your new princess Flurryheart has solved your problem. But of course that didn't work. But it was nice. It was nice seeing that, and seeing her sort of being, active and aware of the surroundings and other characters like that. And we see that in different points of the episode. But that was just I think that was my favorite interaction right there. I don't actually... No, I don't think that's a fault of the episode there, Deem. I don't think that Twilight should have, or would have, or wanted to have handed off anything to Spike there, or really could have. I mean, not that Spike isn't competent in handling these things, but they were still her responsibilities that she had to do as princess. I mean, she was the one that was supposed to be going there to read the books to the sick fillies at the hospital as princess of friendship, as sort of a pseudo celebrity, like a celebrity going to a hospital to talk to sick children. It's kind of her thing to to find the right book that she wanted to read for them. I don't really think she could have handed anything off to Spike necessarily, and she obviously isn't going to hand Flurry off to Spike, because that's why she's getting so preoccupied and falling behind, is because she really, really wants to hang out with her niece. So how about Spike? Some of the conversation has drifted to Spike here, so we can drift over to his character and character development. I already kind of spoke to this earlier in terms of, I think this is another episode where he's represented and written as a character really well. He was at his best, as he always is with when you have a Spike and Twilight duo ever since the first season, playing off her, sort of reacting to her, overreacting to stuff, trying to be the voice of reason when Twilight sort of goes a little overboard here, trying to pull her back, saying, you're taking on too much stuff, and sort of being right in the end about all of that as well. Being, obviously very supportive of Twilight and helping the best he can. And like I said, I really, really like the ending of the episode with him reading to the foals and being very, competent and successful in that. They obviously really enjoyed Spike, even though it's not the princess. I mean, they really enjoyed Spike reading to it, really into that, and he did a good job at it. So it was a very nice thing for Spike to do. And he was very good at doing it. So it was nice to see that for his character there. But DM12, that's not a reason. Why would she have let Spike babysit? The whole reason isn't that she had to babysit. She could have easily said no. In fact, Spike was trying to get her to say no to babysitting, but she really, really wanted to babysit Flurry Heart. She really wanted to have that interaction with her, and really thought that she could take on all the tasks and take on that task and her previous commitments as the Princess of Friendship at the same time.
I can kind of see where DM12's coming from, in the same vein that a lot of the headache could have been avoided if Twilight had, kind of kept a sense about her to basically instruct Spike to actually go on ahead to take care of some of the issues, like buy the toys and get the books from Shirley, while Twilight actually stayed at the castle to play and look over Flurry Heart. But at the same time, this is kind of the issue. This is more just Twilight thinking she's kind of, no, I can handle this. I've got this. It's kind of like that issue with, what was it? Was it Timber Spruce, or what was her name? The one character from the most recent Legend of Everfree, the one who's always saying, "Don't worry, I got this." And Twilight was basically channeling her this particular episode. She was thinking that she could juggle everything and take care of the baby at the same time, because she was just that good. So. Gloriosa, that was it. Yes, thank you. Timber Spruce was the brother. I can never get my characters straight sometimes.
So how about Twilight and her characterization here, since she's sort of the main character of the episode? How did everyone feel about Twilight?
I kind of find it interesting that Twilight actually, for once, decides to kind of disregard her own organization thing for once. I mean, granted, she doesn't get to spend a lot of time for her niece, but for the first time, we actually get to see a situation where Twilight has a scheduled list that's just meticulously kept, and she just completely and totally ignores it in favor of her niece. And I don't think we've ever seen her do anything of the sort ever prior to this.
And it really wasn't necessarily that she was putting the list aside or anything, or or putting those tasks aside for Flurry Heart, more than she thought she could add Flurry Heart to that list and do all of it, and then of course fail miserably at that because of that. She didn't. she thought that Flurry Heart can just be another sort of task on the list, and she could have fun with Flurry Heart, but not realizing that Flurry Heart really needed that undivided attention from her. You can't multitask necessarily with a baby like that wants to play. It was nice again seeing Twilight getting over her head again, though. It's something it's always fun to see, and especially when you pair that up with Spike being more the voice of reason. It was it was also fun seeing Twilight being a little more, sort of wacky and fun, rather than serious and or teachery. I mean, like when you look at a lot of season 6 episodes where Twilight was involved, she was a lot more calm and collected in a lot of episodes. She was providing friendship advice in some way with to Starlight or something like that, or doing sort of princess duties. And a lot of those times she was obviously very calm, collected in those things. But it was nice seeing her in this episode and in the last episode as well, sort of bottled up, be a little more loose and be a little more fun and stuff that she had, the personality she kind of had before. Mr. Ben's season 7 finale. Twilight gets knocked up.
Oh man, season 8 will definitely be fun then.
But yeah, I think this is a really good start of the season. Past 3 episodes with Twilight having, that really great first episode there with her and Celestia, and having that sort of different dynamic there than the last week's episode with the B plot, and then this week's episode. So I think it's anyone who might have been a little disappointed by Twilight's involvement last season and the shift of focus onto different places. Hopefully that has quenched your thirst. On another note, it was nice to see Shirley again in this episode. Ever so briefly, but it was nice seeing her and having a good amount of screen time for Nurse Redheart as well, both at the beginning and at the end of the episode there. Mr. Ben, I'm having flashbacks to those Flash games.
Oh no.
Make them stop. I don't know. After last episode, I thought Starlight and Trixie were gonna knock each other out.
Oh.
Any other characters or characterization that anyone wants to discuss before we move on?
Yes, yeah, Nurse Redheart. Yeah, she. Don't know if anyone else in the chat room noticed this, but Nurse Redheart actually did get a cutie mark change.
Probably because Gina Convention, Red Cross, censorship. Well, not censorship. Probably. Well,
It's not so much censorship as it is more of like a copyright thing.
Copyright. Yeah, that's what I meant. Copyright.
It's more
It
because
wasn't just Nurse Redheart. You also noticed that the cross on the hospital also changed to the new design too.
Oh, I didn't notice that on the hospital. No.
But really, the only reason that they probably really changed it is because they're selling toys of Nurse Redheart, and you know it's when you start trying to sell things and you're trying to copyright and trademark and whatnot, toy designs. That's when you kind of get into that thing where you have to be a little more careful about using something like the cross there. So that's probably why they've wound up sort of retconning that change now versus those earlier seasons, where it would have been a problem then too. I think it's because they've actually started producing toys, and the toys do have and have had that new cutie mark.
But still, the way they did it, if they didn't really need to make a drastic change, all they did was just change it from a red cross to a white cross, and they just stuck a heart in the middle. So
yeah, it's the same thing with Coco Pimel there, is because it was fine until they started making the Coco Pimel toys, and you want to try and trademark that name, and yeah, you can't really do that. So that's one of the reasons for that change as well. It all has to do with toys and trademarking names and selling stuff. Yeah, to be truthful, I didn't even really notice it during the episode myself, so I mean, that's not really an issue for me.
not much of a big issue, but it's still interesting to point out the alteration.
And I don't really think it's a copyright issue either. It's not really copyright. It's just has to do with what the cross stands for, and all over the world and stuff. Anyway, we can move on to the voice acting in this episode. What things stood out with the voice acting for everyone here?
Tabitha was just so dang adorable, doing all of Flurry's little baby noises.
But say, yeah, there like really the only major voice actors in here was, just Twilight Spike. I mean, yeah, we know we got a couple of minor issues with, we got Tabitha doing her baby noises. We had Shining Armor and Cadence doing their little B-plot thing.
We actually had quite a few voice actors in this episode.
Actually, yeah.
Because
I was about to say, now that I think about it, I was listing off characters. I'm thinking, man, no, there's more than just Twilight. Because
remember,
Spike.
Nurse Redheart had a lot of lines. That's Ashley Ball.
Yeah, that was right.
Voicing that. Pumpkin Cake and Pound Cake with Andrea and Tabitha. Spearhead was voiced by Jason Simpson.
Okay. So yeah, because I remember he did a good. He kind of had that sort of. It wasn't like a erudite stoner, but he was definitely doing a surfer dude thing. So yeah.
He previously voiced. It's not his first voice for this series either. He voiced a spa worker in Applejack's Day Off last season.
Now we know why he's an ex-guy. Okay, headcanon accepted. Yeah, he just fired for token up on the job.
It was really great hearing Andrew Francis, Brett McKipp again as Shining Armored Princess Cadence. I think some of my favorite lines and voice actor like delivery was from Britt and Princess Cadence. Like, there's a lot of moments when both her and Shining Armor are sort of, they're half asleep and over very stressed and stuff, and so they forget stuff, and a lot of the lines that they say are just so very well delivered.
Like Radio Dog mentioned in the chat room earlier, Shining Armor basically saying, like, this is, the mashed peas are favorite, and then like 5 minutes later, and then, mashed peas are favorite. Oh, wait, did I already say that? Raising a child will do that to you.
Yeah, like Princess Case, diapers, extra diapers. Oh, and backup extra diapers.
His brain is turning into the mashed peas. That's what it says in child raising test.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite line deliveries would be Princess Cadence, saying, "We're not exactly art enthusiasts, but we could really use a night out." And then Spike's like, "You mean day?" He's like, and then she's like, "Oh, that's what I said. Isn't that what I said?" She almost sort of semi mumbling at the end of that line, and he's kind of just running out really quickly, and it's a really fun delivery of it.
Excuse me.
And I really think Tara had a lot of really fun, really great line deliveries as well for a lot of Twilight's lines, especially as things start getting a little crazier at the end of the episode. Okay, we can go ahead and we can move on to the humor then of the episode. What does everyone have to say about the episode's humor?
Let's see what we got here. I mentioned earlier just Shining Armor and Cadence just showing up out of nowhere, just looking just as frazzled as they did the last time. They had this Flurry apparently naming her favorite toy Whammy, which resulted in Cadence asking Twilight to give her the whammy, like she's talking about mind control, basically. Just the fact that they even named the toy the Whammy, I just kind of got to spin your luck or press your luck.
Press your luck, yeah.
Yeah. Come on, big money, no whammies, stop. Let's say we had when they were trying to spoon feed Flurry Heart, Spike was like, when they said mashed peas were her favorite, did they mean her favorite thing to eat or her favorite thing to decorate a room with?
And then it tries to have it being all over the walls.
Let's say just Pinky actually saying BRB, like literally just BRB, and she just dropped down into her little hidey hole thing.
Or Twilight calling herself a bae.
Yeah. And then we mentioned earlier some of the bizarre art pieces at Spearhead show, such as like the that black wall of nothing. It's like, is this art or a mistake? And even better when they Shining Armor was speaking with Spearhead, and like they say, we're just checking out the art, and Spearhead's like, that's a trash can, dude.
Oh.
And Shirley wondering why Twilight, who has an enormous library of books, needs to come borrow one from the school, and then
Because they all got destroyed when my house got destroyed, Shirley. Jeezy, have you no sympathy?
Where were you? Where were you like 2 seasons ago?
And so I was like, I could, use some of my books, but I doubt the kids would be interested in something like a 7-volume history of amulets. Say,
but then she chooses to read she chooses to read some sort of like action history sort of book anyway.
Yeah. And then, like you mentioned earlier, Spike actually one-upping her on being able to read the book to the kids.
Yeah. And one of the kids actually complimenting Spike. That's a first. I don't think I've ever heard someone compliment Spike.
And it's a Flurry actually being able to practically turn the hospital upside down looking for her doll.
Mm-hmm.
Her little pet slug or pet snail thing.
When he teleports in front of the guy, when the doctor's like, say ah, he's like, ah, ah! That made me laugh.
I love that. Spike saying, I shouldn't have doubted you. Thanks. Wait, you doubted me? And then Flurry Heart trying to dispense the judgment of Solomon on the toy, and turns out Pound and Pumpkin Cake just don't take kindly to their toys being broken, and they did start throwing cupcakes at her. And Twilight just realizing, Pinkie Pie is like, oh, you're making the same face that Shirley made. Oh. And then just that slow turn over her shoulder.
I was a big fan of Flurry Heart's Twilight artwork on the board. It reminded me of Rainbow Dash's Twilight artwork from Testing 1, 2, 3.
Also, speaking of the speaking of the same face Shirley made, that wild take that Pinky makes.
Yeah. Also, the stamp looking like, just a sad face of her own face.
Yeah, of course, Pinky would do like the sampler platter, whatever has the most variety. Oh yeah, the sad pony stamp.
I posted that in the wrong one. I meant to post that in I was set it to the general Discord. There we go.
I really liked after I think it was right after when was it? I forget exactly what it was. There's one little scene where Nurse Redheart pulls a rarity and faints onto a pillow. Very dramatic style. I can't remember if it was after or like during one of the parts of the story that was being read, or if it was after Flurry Heart's mayhem stopped. It was after one of those.
It was after Flurry Heart's
Okay.
mayhem. It was Twilight managed to catch everything and settle it down.
Yeah. She's like, Nurse Redheart's been taking some lessons from drama lessons from Rarity, apparently.
And Nurse Redheart's like, I'm just gonna take a nap now. Falls backward.
So I totally expect to see every vendor selling those sad pony stamps at at the next convention.
It'll also become an emoji, I bet.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to go find one of those, make it an emoji.
You could probably get you something here. 1 second.
Yeah, that's okay. I have to do it right now. I wouldn't be able to see it in the RC chat anyway. I already have it. I already added some of the fun emojis to Discord, but you have to be in the Discord chat to see them. They're 20% cooler. There we go. I do need to re-upload them and fill them with white though, because if you're using the night mode in Discord.
That picture of Jay just posting that with the Pinky's bug-eyed look.
Yeah, that's a little creepy. That shading on her eyes just coming out of like, I mean, it's more than just the eyes popping out. It's like the eyes getting nearer than the sockets and having really intense shading on them to the bottom, so they look really 3D. It's a really unsettling picture. Anything else for humor that anyone wants to point out? So I can go into the visuals here and the animation. There's a couple things I wanted to point out. One of them was definitely Twilight's faces when she's pressed up against the Flurry Heart's sort of protective bubble that she has. Just like, oh my god, Twilight. Personal space. And the other one was the artwork in the picture of Cheerilee with all of the ponies with the ponypox or measles, whatever it was.
I think it was the horsey hives.
Horsey hives, whatever disease those zombie ponies are riddled with. The artwork in that picture is the same kind of style as the pictures from the season one, from the first episode of this season, both in Twilight's and Starlight's mirrors, and I really like the style there, and it was nice seeing it kind of return here as well, as more of like an artsy kind of hand-drawn looking style versus the vectory flash style of the characters in the show. It's just nice seeing those pictures sort of with a different little art style than just using, shrinking down some of the vectors and putting them in a picture. I'm going to guess that there's different classes or different maybe years. I think because the ponies in the picture here, they look a little younger than the ponies in the CMC's class. So I'm going to assume they have some sort of grades or age groups that Cheerilee teaches, Because I don't think any of the ponies in that class were the same ponies that were in the CMC's class.
No, they didn't look recognizable to me.
But they definitely seemed a lot younger. because they looked like they were learning a lot more simple stuff on the board. Where the last time we saw the CMC, they were learning like pre-calculus or something on the board. It was a nice kind of comparison. I saw a funny comparison I saw someone make online where about the premiere episode of the season. Like in public school with Cheerilee, all the students are learning pre-calculus, but in magical kindergarten, Twilight's learning like like simple math or something, whatever they had on the board there. Like, yeah, I think I've mentioned the extra diapers and backup extra diapers about 3 times already. That was a hilarious joke, and very, very good line delivery. We have seen some of those ponies before, though. I definitely recognize some of them, like the one that kind of looks like Fry from Futurama on the left there, and the one with the purple glasses, and the one that looks like a mini Flash Sentry. So yeah, I think Twilight already had a baby. We've seen those 3. We've definitely seen those 3 before, but not in the CMC's class.
I was out Flurry's face when Twilight's just spit down in a cart.
I'll bow down to your new Alicorn Princess Flurry Heart. She really looks like she just chugged a beer down, and she's just like Barney from The Simpsons, just letting out this ungodly burp. That one wasn't her tantrum face. That's the one where she's riding in the cart and like acting. There's a couple times where she acted like a dog in this episode, and that was the second one. I really like the image that Mr. Ben there, but if someone finds the GIF version of that scene, I really like that one. She's looking at Spike trying to get his attention, and just throws the block at him. And it's like, come on, look at this, come on. The storyboarding there is just so great. It's a very, very funny looking scene.
I have a variation of that one. Let me see if I can find that one. I know I have it.
Flurry's like, you see this shit, Spike? You see what I have to put up with?
There we go.
Also, there was a bit where Twilight winks, and then Flurry tries to copy it, but she can't quite do it. You hear her just trying to slowly get her eye open, and then she just closes both, and
oh my God, Mr. Ben, that's the perfect image there. I always like good new reaction images. Not even 1 year into my reign as princess, and I already have my subjects fighting each other. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next subject here. And no song this week, of course, but we do have a little bit of score and backing for the backing music here of the episode. Not we have a good amount in terms of overall tracks, but not as much in terms of time-wise. Since this is a little more wacky episode, a lot of the score is just kind of that wacky backing score to match what's going on screen. But there is a lot of good returning musical cues in this episode that are fitting and that you would expect to hear again. So let's bring up the first one. Now this oops. There we go. Now we're gonna start with the first one, the first track from the cold open here, and this one actually includes something that I didn't even realize we had heard before in the series, before the season 6 premiere. So when in this one, when Shining and Cadence enter the scene and Shining starts talking, we hear this little woodwind cue, this little clarinet cue in the background that you might recognize. We heard it last in the season 6 premiere. Also when Shining Armor was talking, and when he was anointing Sunburst to the crystaller of the Crystal Empire there. And I knew we'd heard it before, but I couldn't place where it was. But recently I actually heard it again when I was just kind of listening to some of the music, and it's actually really I didn't recognize, couldn't place it because it was so long ago. We actually heard it all the way back for Shining Armor's introduction, back in the season 2 finale, right after he shows Twilight his protection spell in that episode. So I'll go ahead and I'll play the track here, and you'll hear that woodwind cue a little bit into the track here. That little shock stinger there when we show the photos. So we start building up to the knock on the door here. Ta-da! And here's that theme. And if I kind of go to the blast from the past here and maybe scroll through the ridiculous amount of pony music I have here and find that episode here. Here we go. Shining Armor Spell Over Cantalot. Just so you can hear, here's its original appearance back with Shining Armor's introduction all the way back at the end of Season 2. So a little bit longer version of it here originally than we had in today's episode. From there we get to Twilight beginning to play with Flurry art before Shining and Cadence leave here. So we have a little bit of kind of a very airy sounding horn score at the beginning of the track, and then when Twilight starts playing with Flurry Heart and their toys, you have this really fun little tune playing that gets really disjointed and kind of off-sounding when Flurry Heart plays with it, because you can see Twilight puppeteering the figure, whatever the figure is, very like a puppet, like very artistfully. And then Flurry Heart comes, levitating it, but still obviously not very, as being a foal, not very skilled at it. So it just kind of bangs the puppet all over the place with the magic rather than just gracefully. So the music kind of follows suit, and you'll hear it in the track here. There's the very kind of airy score there for cadence. And here comes Twilight playing with it. And here comes Flurry Heart. Back to Twilight. And then Flurry Heart goes back and forth. This little guitar part here. This is the where Caden's talking about the diapers. Music box sounding Peach there for the whammy. We'll go to the next track here. So the next track is another returning theme. This is one of the new themes, one of the new motifs that was introduced in Season 6. So this is Flurry Heart's leitmotif. This was introduced for her in the Season 6 premiere, obviously, for her when she's flying around like crazy there. And also was used in the credits of the first episode there. It makes its appearance here for Flurry Heart as she is flying around and playing with Twilight in this episode. So yeah, it's one of my favorite things about the music in this series is the use of the leitmotifs for pretty much like a lot of the main characters and situations and locations. So again, it's nice hearing this another one here introduced for the new character Flurry Heart here, and hearing that again used again in this episode. From there, we move on to Spearhead's introduction. As we enter the art gallery here, we have this sort of jazzy score, and you might actually recognize this jazzy cue. It's actually a small piece of one of the cues that was used as one of the main themes in the episode Rarity Investigates from Season 5. So it kind of pulls from that episode there to start us off. And then as Spearhead is introduced and starts talking, he gets this very bass-heavy bassoon score for him behind him. So then after that, we cut back to Twilight and Flurryheart as Flurryheart is throwing all the mashed peas around. And this is kind of a cool piece of score here, because this presents a much slower version of Flurryheart's motif that sounds kind of slightly annoyed or annoying. So it's kind of, again, putting a variation on her leitmotif here to fit the scene. You'll notice the same melody there, but just a lot slower. Skipping ahead a little bit, we get to Cheerilee at the schoolhouse. It's kind of a nice short little track for Cheerilee and the schoolhouse here. It ends with the Spike introducing that the novel that they have about the dragons, which is accompanied by this really horn-heavy score, which appears a few tracks later here when we actually get to the scene with Twilight reading from the book. That's actually another one of my favorite lines from the episode that I completely forgot about. When Cheerilee is introducing showing one of the books to Twilight, and Twilight's just like, well, the science there is really preposterous. It's like, oh, come on, Twilight. Let's see. The next one here is when Cadance and Shining are sort of having everything bring back memories of Flurryheart for them there. So we get a very short sort of emotion piece here. So going forward again a little bit here, we get to Twilight reading the story about the treacherous Grogar here. So we get this very kind of horn and timpani heavy medieval kind of sounding score that would kind of fit in with what we heard from last season's Spike and Dragon episode there from last season. So, skipping to the resolution of the episode here, we get finally Twilight sort of admitting her fault here and apologizing to Flurryheart with this more emotional piece. And so finally we end the episode off here with Cadance and Shining Armor returning and Twilight sort of giving her spiel about what happened to them. As Twilight's talking about her time with Flurryheart here, we hear one of the series' newer lesson motifs here. So the series has a lot of lesson motifs, but this is one of the newer ones. It first appeared in season 5's Bloom and Gloom at the end of that, when the CMC and Luna are all talking about sort of what they learned and what Apple Bloom learned in her dream. And it appeared again at the end of Gauntlet of Fire as well. at the very end there, while Spike was talking near the end of that episode. So we hear it again here. It sounds very similar and same kind of feel as a lot of the season 1, season 2 lesson themes that we hear a lot. But it's nice to hear a new one here. This one will start off with the some of the series' flying score before we get to that lesson motif. And here's that lesson score here. Not there. It's after. It's after that. That was a different score. Here's the lesson score coming up. Here it is. Finally get back to that heroic kind of score here as Spike finishes off the book. And that ends the score for the episode. So again, not as much like what it had. A lot of the track, it did have like 13 tracks of score in it, but a lot of the tracks were a lot shorter, kind of very short cues for characters or situations there. And then of course a lot of wacky sort of music for her back in Flurry Heart doing crazy stuff. So moving on, what does everyone think about this episode's theme and moral?
Well, Twilight learns that spending more time with a loved one isn't what's important, but rather spending more quality time with them is. As in spending time with them instead of bringing them along with you while you fulfill your responsibilities. Also, you shouldn't volunteer for something if you don't actually have the time to do it properly, however worthwhile it may be. Conversely, don't give someone an important and demanding task without proper notice, particularly when that someone is known to be very busy.
Especially when you drop in on it in a moment when and she definitely 2 seconds before she's about to go out to do something very busy.
I think this is another one of those lessons that was very similar to the lesson we got in the season opener, where it speaks a lot more to an older audience than it does to the younger audience or a general audience. The first episode of this season, and Celestial Advice, had a lot to do with letting sort of like parents like letting children grow up and go and move on, or teachers letting students move on, etc. of it. And this one has a lot to do both for adults and also for kids that might be of age of starting to want to babysit and stuff, and learning about how much work is actually involved in caring for a baby, and you can't just sort of do both. Try and care for the baby while still carrying on with a lot of normal tasks that you might have had to do otherwise. And I know a lot of this is definitely an episode that a lot of parents will be able to relate to, in terms of, especially new parents, in terms of what Shining and Cadence are kind of going through in the episode, both in terms of being very tired and exhausted in raising the baby, but also in terms of leaving the child there for the first time, going away from your child for the first time and trying to be away from them, and sort of the negative emotional effects that can have on you as well.
Also, especially when dealing with children, don't be a dick.
Thing think it's interesting here. I saw some people state that maybe the episode was at fault because Twilight wasn't really in the wrong, I guess, because she kind of winds up being the one apologizing at the end when, Flurry Heart was the one being the, kind of causing the problems.
I mean, using a firm tone to discipline a child is a good idea. It's, so the child realizes their mistake. It's very hard to use it on a very young child without, unintentionally scaring them.
But even before that, it was kind of like, Flurry Heart, was the one causing a lot of the issues. But at the same time, she's a baby and a newborn here, and so it's like Twilight is. It's not like you can just say, "Oh, Twilight shouldn't have apologized at the end because she wasn't at fault." But no, Twilight, it was at fault because it's a newborn, and Twilight should have given that. If her job was babysitting, if she took on that job, she should have given that infant her undivided attention, because that infant's going to want to play, want to do food, eat, etc., etc. And Twilight was trying to do all this other stuff and shoving Flurry Heart off to the side a lot while she was trying to complete her normal tasks. So in the end, I think Twilight really was right in the right in terms of apologizing to Flurry Heart at the end, because she's the one that kind of got them into this whole mess at the same time. I mean, a baby's going to be a baby, and Twilight was at fault for not treating it as such. And I think she's also at fault at the end for losing her temper. I mean, yeah, you got to discipline a child and tell them that they're wrong, but Twilight kind of almost took a Starlight approach there in terms of ignoring the problem until it kind of built up, like, and all bottled up, and kind of unleashed all of that, like, hey, stop doing that at one fell swoop. So so she didn't constantly wasn't constantly giving that attention to Flurry Heart and disciplining her throughout the day or anything like that. It kind of all culminated into that one burst of rage when nothing else would get through to Flurry Heart at the end there, which of course very much upset Flurry Heart, because in the end Twilight should have been giving her attention to begin with.
Like I just mentioned, the issue is neither side here is completely blameless. And a lot of people are really more willing to give the baby a bit of a slide here, because she's a baby. She doesn't really have that emotional or mental understanding just quite yet. But like you said, yeah, if Twilight had paid a little bit more attention to Flurry Heart, then a lot of this probably could have been mitigated, if not prevented entirely.
I mean, and not to mention, it's like Flurry Heart, yeah, it's baby's a baby. Yeah, it's not blameless or anything, but I mean, baby's going to do what baby's going to do. But the problem here is Twilight bringing that baby to all these other locations when she's trying to read to foals. And of course, it's like people who bring babies to movies. It's like, I can't blame, or theater or something. I can't blame the baby for yelling or crying. I'm not going to yell and say, shut up, baby. It's not the baby's fault. It's the parent's fault for bringing, for not, giving their attention to that child and trying to bring it somewhere or not. So it's a kind of a nice little parallel to that kind of thing.
I wouldn't scream at the baby, but dear God, do I want to slap the parents upside the head for doing something of that nature. It's like,
let me bring my baby to see Rogue One or something. It's like, no. Seriously, either don't go see the movie, wait for it. Yeah.
If you can't afford a freaking babysitter, then don't freaking go out. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's like either wait till either don't go out and wait for it to come out on DVD, or get a babysitter. Don't bring the baby into the theater. No. There's no movie. There's not very many movies that I think are appropriate to bring a baby in, even kids' movies. Because baby's not going to get anything out of it. I mean, they're just going to annoy everyone else there. So, but anyway, that's why I totally disagree with anyone who's saying Twilight wasn't at fault and the episode placed the blame on the wrong person, or pony in this case. because no, that's not how babies work. Oh gosh, yep, exactly ready, Doug. So, favorite parts of the episode and any concerns anyone has?
Don't really have any particular favorites. I guess just Flurry Heart in general, really.
I don't think we mentioned it, but also when that adorable little kissing noise when Twilight says, can you ever forgive me? And then Flurry kisses Twilight and they make that honk sound effect.
Yeah, that is really cute.
Favorite parts, I mean, I really like the episode's comedy and the humor in it. I don't know, I guess for me, my favorite parts, looking back, is just a lot of the different dialogue and a lot of the lines and the line delivery of it. Like I said, like I mentioned, the ones from Cadence and the ones from Twilight. There was a lot of really good, very natural sounding lines and very funny lines that had just the right comedic timing and were delivered very well. So like, it's very good vocal performance and vocal direction on them. And like I said, the only concern I had was with the teleporting with Twilight. I think this is really the only time in the show that I really truly believe it was an issue that you can't just kind of wave away by saying, it was too far away or Twilight didn't know where she was going. I think that, and not to mention, it just became, it wasn't just like, oh, she didn't teleport there, just in a little tiny part of the story, oh, I'm going to complain about it. It was such a crucial part of the story of her trying to quickly get to all of these locations because she was running late, and it just seemed a little weird that she didn't teleport there to save a lot of time. Especially when teleporting is featured heavily in the episode with Flurry Heart doing it. So it doesn't ruin the episode, just a minor complaint, but I think it was something that was definitely overlooked by the new writers and the story editors for the episode. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of memeable edit material between the chalkboard and between the picture. I've already seen a ton of stuff with the picture that the three of them are looking at. The art, quote unquote art. And yeah, I think that's another one of my favorite parts would be Spike. I really enjoyed Spike in the episode, and I really liked the ending with him as well. So finally, any final thoughts and overall feelings for the episode?
I think I'm fine.
Yep, I mean, like, it's not, it was a good episode. It did what it was supposed to do. It did, it did a kind of common story thing, and did it really well. It did something similar to Baby Cakes, but still was able to make it its own thing and make the problem be different than the problem that was in Baby Cakes. At least enough different where it stands on its own. It was a nice continuation of kind of Baby Flurry Heart's involvement in the show, kind of following that natural progression of the basic things that you can really do with a foal in the show. And it offered some nice more insight and and allowed us to see more of Cadence and Shining Armor just being parents in it, which was very nice as well. It was a fun episode. I don't know, I think Baby Cakes, I liked Baby Cakes as well. I think I liked this one more, but Baby Cakes was fun. I tried to do something a little different in terms of, again, Pinky being over her head just because the foals were too powerful to her take care of rather than trying to balance a lot of other tasks. And did a lot of nice, like, semi, like, horror comedy and stuff with that as well. Yeah, it's kind of like I like this episode more or less because I think it was executed better, and more because of like the subject matter it was covering. I guess that would be why. Okay, well, with that, everyone, thank you for joining us for this week's Equine Episode Examination. For it, not quite as much to talk about in this episode, because, again, it's more kind of a fun comedy episode, but it was still a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to talk about. So, this weekend, we do have the Season 7 train continues going strong here. This weekend, where we have a Episode 4, Season 7, brand new, this weekend at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. For rock solid friendship, and you can make some assumptions on what character is going to be involved in that. So I'm pretty excited to see this episode this weekend, and of course we'll be talking about this episode next Tuesday again here on EEE at CinemaQuestria.com at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we hope you will join us for that. I have to work some other things out first and double check and make sure what stuff's going to be like schedule wise, but I'm hoping we're probably going to have another This Week in Pony episode this coming Monday. I wanted to have one yesterday, but just too much going on this past weekend, so I'm hoping if I have enough time to put something together, we'll be able to have another This Week in Pony episode on Monday coming up, where we can talk about some of the news we've missed over the past month since we've had the last episode, talking about We've been kind of debating whether or not to have some, but it wasn't really a lot of news that had come out besides episode synopsises, and I really didn't want This Week in Pony to just become pre-Triple-E, where we talk about nothing but episode synopsises that have come out for future episodes. It just seemed counterproductive. So we do have some good news and stuff that's been coming out the past couple of weeks that we finally can kind of get to a point where we have enough to talk about. So keep an eye on our schedule on Twitter and calendar and front page and show page and whatnot just to see when we're going to be having that next episode. But I'm hoping if I have enough time to put it together, we'll be having it next Monday. And of course, our Triple-E for this new episode this weekend will be happening next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for that. Oh, and one more thing, of course. We will, I guess this is something that we forgot to announce, but we will be having a new CQ Riffs, of course, this coming weekend. We forgot to announce it on Saturday like we said we would, so I'll announce it now. So at 1 p.m. this weekend, we will be having another CQ Riffs, and we will be riffing the masterpiece of Baby Geniuses. Fitting given the episode we discussed and watched this week and last week. We'll be having more babies next weekend then. Yeah, get ready for that. That's happening. Yeah, join us on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time after the new MLP episode. We'll be discussing that masterpiece. So, well, with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Hope to see you next week, and have a great evening, everyone.
Later, folks.
See ya.
Bye-bye.